Thank you for having me.
Can we call it Title Town? You've won NFL titles, 3 Super Bowls, NHL, last year's champions, made the World Series in baseball a couple of times, first time now in an NBA Finals. How has Denver reacted to this?
I think there's a little bit of, it's an equal part chest pounding and elbow pinching. You know, they've never been here. And to backtrack, they've only been in one World Series. So baseball wise, it's not quite Title Town yet. But every other sport, now that the Nuggets are finally in their first NBA Finals, is I think there's a little bit of we told you so all the way around. A little bit of it hasn't quite sunken in yet because I guess it happened so fast. It happened too fast to win 4 games in whatever 6 days, 8 days. People are like, wait, is this real? It may not feel real until June 1st when the finals get underway against presumably Miami.
So many questions from those thoughts of yours there. Starting off with, this team has never been given the respect that it deserves. This player, Jokić, has never been given the respect that he deserves. Why is that? Is it because you're a town that's not really associated with basketball? Is it because a big lunking, sort of unathletic looking European guy is actually dominating this league, which has traditionally been for decades dominated by very athletic black athletes? We sit here miles away looking at it going, I'm amazed at how good Jokić is, and no one really talks about how brilliant he is.
Right. I think it's all three of those things you mentioned, and pick your order. There's been kind of a Jokić being a foreign player and not being a highlight dunker, athletic foreign player has been held against him in the MVP argument, as you know, for years. This has been the cross he's had to bear, whether he cares or not. He cares a little. He admits he cares a little. I don't know how much he cares in the long view. And he's winning the argument anyway, for one. 2, and I think both of your other points can be made into one. Well, the second point is the history. There isn't any. And you have to earn it to prove it to get there. And this was one of 6 franchises that hadn't been to an NBA Finals, and now you're 9-5. And their legacy, it isn't made by just getting here, but what they do for this next series in the finals is going to determine a lot of their narrative. And 3, nobody in America watches the Denver Nuggets. Nobody. Like, not even locally. And I don't know if you know this, on a local level, they are blacked out by coax cable subscribers. The largest carrier failed to carry the team-owned cable channel that shows their games and the Avalanche games. They've been blacked out of at least 55 to 60% of Denver TVs since November 2019.
Wow.
So, and you think how good the Avs have been, to your point, at that time. So more than half the market has now been able to watch the 2 best teams, for one. Now, nationally, because it's in the Mountain Time Zone, it's not been a traditional NBA quote-unquote sexy market. ESPN doesn't do a lot of games. I don't know. I'm sure you saw Lisa Salters, their esteemed sideline reporter, went on a podcast a few days ago and said, I'd never seen Nikola Jokić play before game 1 against the Lakers. He's pretty good. People here reacted with a combination of laughter and astonishment because basically ESPN, the biggest, not in the world certainly, but certainly North American sports broadcaster, just flat out having a staffer admit who's covered the NBA for years, they've never watched a 2-time MVP, and he's pretty good. There's that, and kind of the astonishment that someone said that out loud. But there's a ring of truth to it because I had friends where I'm from in the Midwest of the USA texting me left and right during this Lakers series going, who is this Jokić guy? Who is this guy? I've never seen him before, because I bet to 70% of America, this week was the first time they ever saw the Denver Nuggets play. I'll wager you at least 2/3. And they went, wow, where did they come from? So it's like, just completely out of the blue to them.
Has a sleeping giant been awoken here? And also, when you say things like that, you look at this team. Yes, you've got Jamal Murray. Yes, you've got Nikola. But it's kind of, I look at it like one of Pop's San Antonio teams. Yes, he had his superstars, but for years, this is team basketball being played at its absolute best, which isn't sexy. It's not Ja Morant doing wonder dunks and waving guns around in nightclubs, is it? Which is all kind of the social media.
Nightclubs in Denver, too.
In Denver, yeah, which is all the social media rage, and it creates instant headlines and 30-second attention span, Instagram kind of generation that it is. These are guys who play no frills basketball, who play genius basketball, but because it's not highlight reel basketball, I just wondered, is that kind of part of the reason why kind of people look at this team and go, oh yeah, but never consider them to be elite, which is what they are.
Well, the NBA is about the show. That's what built it. That's what made it. And that's fine. And I think your parallel to San Antonio, both in terms of style and market size, is pretty apt. And I'm sure you've seen Jokic's NBA hero is not Bird or Magic. I joke that he looks like, you remember Bryant Reeves, the old big Vancouver Grizzlies center, played in Oklahoma and Oklahoma State College. I kidded a friend. He looks like Bryant Reeves, but he plays like Magic Johnson. Those aren't perfect comparisons, but he's a lot closer to Magic than he is to, say, Bryant Reeves, big country. And his NBA hero is Tim Duncan. He kind of likes being out of sight, out of mind, and just being the most fundamental, smartest basketball player on the floor and trying to beat you with his hands and his brain rather than anything else. And what's crazy, not to us in this market, but what's crazy to everybody else, and certainly to the national pundits, is that he's done it. And this is the apex of what they've been building. I know you've seen from afar for years and years and years. They've been pretty good. Made some big trades in 1920 or in 2021. Jamal Murray basically goes on the shelf for 2 years. This team goes on the shelf for 2 years. And now they've kind of come along this apex they've been building since 2017, 2018. And we can't argue that we're at the peak of it. I guess the question is how long that apex is going to last, because this is a fun stat. Some folks were talking about this. That starting lineup, there's only one guy who started game 4 against the Lakers for the Nuggets, who's older than 29, and that's Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, KCP, who they acquired this offseason. Everybody else is, I think, 28 or younger.
Sean Keeler from the Denver Post with us. We're talking about the Nuggets sweeping the Lakers yesterday and now awaiting either the Miami Heat or the Boston Celtics for a crack at the World Championship. And I was watching ESPN last night after work and was fascinated by what LeBron had to say. Here's a guy that's a 2-time MVP, Nikola, and there's all this kind of stuff swirling around. Look, he's not a stat padder. I mean, that's the greatest thing about watching him. This isn't the guy that actually goes out there trying to actually, get his triple doubles and things. Nope. He gets triple doubles because he earns them every single night. And you're watching him compared to Anthony Davis. Like, Davis might play one game and then the next game he's kind of tired or he's ineffective. Nikola Jokić just does this game after game. There's Tim Legler broke it down beautifully last night. He said, people laugh at this guy and say he's not an athlete. Watch him pound up the court here, take 2 defenders with him and leave an absolute open 3. He's the ultimate team player. And that's kind of not sexy, is it? As far as the NBA is concerned. And I'm, LeBron's saying, I'm talking to AD afterwards. And that drop back 50-foot rainbow, that just nothing but net. I mean, the skill level of the guy is so high, and yet he's just not getting the props that he deserves. Hopefully, I was hoping Jimmy Buckets might get a ring because I love this playoff Jimmy story and things. Sure. But now I'm actually going for Nikola and just saying, stick it in the face to the NBA, because this is true basketball being played here and it needs to be recognized.
And that's kind of one of the secret reasons I've had for months thinking not winning the MVP and all the you talk about toxic conversations about that. Race gets brought into it, ethnicity, and American sports is one of the few refuges where sectarianism can kind of go away. For all the faults in American sports, and I say that as an international soccer fan, that's one of the few things that American sport has over, say, European soccer, football. That got ugly, and it's been ugly for a couple of years. But I wonder in a way if that wasn't the last thing, motivation wise, to make again a superstar at his apex go, you know what, to heck with it, and stronger language than that. I win the whole thing. I get to change the narrative. I get to have the last laugh. And then if they want to diss me after, everyone's going to watch me take out Kevin Durant, Karl Anthony Towns, and LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and possibly Jimmy Butler. who's a great story too. It's kind of a basketball nerds final, Heat Nuggets. But it's a network executive's nightmare because they wanted Lakers Celtics so bad for the history. It's like Celtic Rangers or Man U and Chelsea and what have you, Liverpool. It's that, and they got Leeds and Newcastle instead, and Newcastle will be fine, but you've got to kind of take that where it goes. So, but it's kind of for purists. And I think we're going to find out who really likes the basketball and who really likes the show, because there's a lot to like about this matchup, presuming that's the one we're going to get.
Sean Keeler with the Denver Post. So I want to get on to obviously this finals matchup in a second. One more thing with Nikola Jokić. So you watch this guy when he walks onto the court. It's like he's been in a cage with a tiger. The scratches and gouges down his arm. He's bleeding from the arms. I mean, so this is a guy that doesn't shun the contact, but nothing he does is showy or flashy. He just takes the bumps, he takes the hits, he takes the scratches and people grappling at him. He just puts it up. But I think part of the charm for me, Sean, is that he looks so unathletic. And I mean, and that's no disrespect to the guy at all, but I mean, he looks tired from the moment he gets on the court. It's nothing he does is frisky, or he doesn't do, wonder jams from, jumping like Jordan or anything like that. But he's just so precise and machine-like. And it's a joy to watch. I mean, I love everything that he does. He's such a selfless kind of player. Deserves to be held up in those conversations. But for somebody like LeBron to kind of be talking with such surprise, I was just quite insulted by it and just thought, really? Are you that far up your own backside that you can't recognize how good this guy is because he just doesn't fit your mold of what you think an NBA superstar should look like? Well,
LeBron has his own literal media empire and media cocoon for decades. This is someone who's kind of flown above everyone to begin with. So I'm sure he's still in a little bit of shock right now. And there's going to be just kind of some waking up of, damn, did that just happen?
Yeah, we got walloped. We got embarrassed. We got taken to on our own home court there.
And they're going to hear it in LA, as they should. That's a premier franchise in this country, never mind in this league. And they got it handed to them. So I would be surprised if they don't take something constructive from this moving forward, but that's their problem. I think Denver and Denver fans certainly are so used to being ignored, laughed at, and just generally considered the redheaded stepchild of the NBA that it just makes this sweeter on every level. They're just like, revenge of the Sith, bring it on. Your hate is just going to make us stronger. And they really feel that, particularly with the Nuggets and with the Rockies in baseball, because those are the teams relative to, say, the Broncos and the Avs, who have had the harder climb, who have had to fight for that respect, and still, in the case of the Rockies, still don't really have it. And when the All-Star game was here, I think we talked about that a couple of years ago. I was just thrilled to see, because I'm a baseball guy first and foremost. And to see all these national baseball people here, I'm like, oh my God, take a picture. We're never going to have this many kids, this many big names, never mind players, but just media who cover it, because Denver is like the last stop before your game, you get thrown out of the league or playing in another country. It's kind of the last place you go. And the Nuggets for generations were considered that too, but not anymore. And that's what makes this all the sweeter.
Is there a favorite or preferred opponent in the final? Obviously, with the Heat up 3-0, I mean, it'd be, it's almost the impossible ask. I mean, teams have come back to 3-3 but haven't won game 7. To come back from an 0-3 deficit to do a Red Sox against the Yankees, I mean, this would be unprecedented. This would be history. It looks like the Heat, but what kind of threat do either of those East Coast Division teams pose to the Nuggets in the final?
I think Nuggets fans certainly would prefer the Heat on a couple levels. One, they can only name like one of their players or maybe two, and they're only scared of one and maybe two, as opposed to what Boston brings to the table, especially defensively if they're right. Although you can argue whether Boston's shown it in this series and whether the coaching is proven that from a mental standpoint. I think the big push for the Heat here and why people are secretly rooting for them now is home court, where Denver hasn't lost since ages. I can't even tell you, but it's April something since they've lost a game at Ball Arena, and they pretty much took April off. they really did rest a lot. They did the dreaded load management thing once they knew they had the 1 seed locked up with about, I want to say, 2 weeks to go, or 10 or 11 games, a big chunk. And then they just kind of ran the bench out and did whatever. I think they want home court. They don't get that with Boston. I think folks here would rather see the Heat on a couple levels, but home court being one of them.